Hello and welcome to CBA. Uh, we're about to do an author interview with Ariel Feldman and Warren Carter. We're going to introduce their newest book called Early Judaism in the New Testament, Troubling Misunderstandings. First of all, I want to introduce our two authors. Ariel Feldman is the Rosalind and Manny Rosenthal Professor of Jewish Studies at Bright Divinity School, where he teaches in the field of Jewish studies in his specialty of Second Temple period literature. Ariel earned his PhD at the University of Haifa in 2008. Warren Carter is the LaDonna Kramer Minders Professor of New Testament at Phillips Seminary in Tulsa, Oklahoma. From 2007 to 2019, he was Professor of New Testament at Bright Divinity School, where this is the connection, I suppose. He earned his PhD in New Testament from Princeton Theological Seminary in 1991. So welcome to you both, and thank you for being here, and thank you for writing this book. We really appreciate it. Today we have three questions for our authors. They're kind of focused on what the book is about and how it reflects on the field of study and how people are going to use it in the field of religious studies and also in the classroom. So our first question, they have chosen who's going to answer which question. So the first one, what is the central theme of the book? And I believe, Ariel, you're going to answer this one. So please.
Thank you very much, Archie. So in this book, we are looking into interactions between the beliefs and practices as they're reflected in the writings of early Judaism and the New Testament. So that's why we call the book Early Judaism and the New Testament. But it's really the subtitle, which you've mentioned, Troubling Misunderstandings, that brings forth what we're trying to accomplish in this book. We're actually looking at several misunderstandings about early Jewish beliefs and practices that Christians often employ in reading the New Testament. So we discuss topics such as the temple, the law, the Torah, angels and demons, resurrection, eschatology, prayer. So just as one example, the New Testament writings identify Jesus as the Messiah or Christ. And you can often hear folks claim that messianic expectations were widespread in the times of Jesus, and that for the majority or for many, Jesus did not measure up to these expectations. But as we explain in the book in quite a lot of detail, this is actually a very problematic, perhaps even untrue claim. There are very few early Jewish texts about the Messiah, and they do not set out one uniform expectation.
All right. Thank you, Ariel. So our second question is going to go to Warren. So maybe you could just reflect on the history of scholarship and how the book kind of fits into that realm. So Warren.
Thank you, Archie. In terms of the book's location and its place in the fields of study, the last 75 or so years have seen a huge development in our understandings of early Judaism. And of course, those understandings have been prompted to a large extent by the discovery and the publications and the scholarship around the Dead Sea Scrolls. But also that work has stimulated further work in other collections of texts from early Judaism that we know of as the Pseudepigrapha and the Apocrypha. And so with those two collections, there's been a lot of rereading and a rethinking of interpretations and understandings of early Judaism. And so this very different picture has emerged of diverse and vibrant materials, which has replaced the sort of the old paradigm of what was legalistic and ritualistic and those sorts of things. So that changed and developing understanding of early Judaism has had another implication. Of course, it's been a major effect for understanding of early Judaism, but it has had another major implication. That is that long-standing Christian views of early Judaism and figures such as Jesus and Paul have been reimagined and rethought as well. So often Christian self-understandings and interpretations of New Testament texts have played off negative understandings of early Judaism. And so as understandings of early Judaism have changed, it's not legalistic, it's not dead, it's not profoundly messianic. As those understandings have changed, so there has been a process of rethinking a number of Christian affirmations and the relationship of the early Jesus movement to the larger world of early Judaism and its diversity and its vibrancy. And so in the book, we try to draw these two things together, Airel's expertise in early Judaism and my work in the early Jesus movement. And we've tried to address some of these, what we call misunderstandings. We've tried to trouble them, to provide a synthesis of this material that has taken place in these developing understandings over the last 75 or so years.
Thank you, Warren. I mean, you're so right. I mean, this is such an exploding field of interest in scholarship these days, the Second Temple Judaism and Christian origins. So our third question is, how would the book be helpful to religious leaders, both Christian and Jewish, or academics in the classroom? How's this book going to be helpful for them?
Thank you, Archie. So I for one, have the privilege of teaching in the seminary where the faculty really feels that it's important for divinity students to have a good understanding of what early Judaism and Judaism in general was and is. And teaching a course on early Judaism every semester, I always wanted a sort of easy to access, simply written, but yet not simplistic, up to date and well-informed book. I tried different books throughout the years, and I think finally, together with Warren, we came up with this idea of a book that sets early Jewish texts, beliefs, and practices alongside the early Christian ones, which is really helpful for divinity students. So the idea, the plan, the strategy, the teaching tools of this book, they really all come from many years of experience, shared experience in the classroom.
Great. Thank you. More?
Yeah, thanks. I too teach in a seminary context at Phillips Theological Seminary. And as part of my teaching sort of stable of texts, I teach an upper level elective that runs with the title of Reading the New Testament in the Context of Early Judaism. And like Airel, I've been on a search for the textbook that we can use. I've used extracts from a number of books across a number of years, but I was looking for one book that might pull some of this material together, and so Airel and I have been able to construct this particular book. And the chapters that we have, some of the titles that Airel just mentioned, of course, are the focus for our work in the class. Like Airel, I've tested a number of the chapters before the book was published, tested a number of the chapters with students, and the material has gone really well. So for a classroom text, I think it's well suited. There are questions at the end of each chapter. We've tried to write in a way that is accessible for students. Some of the material is technical and some of the material is quite unknown. So we've tried to be as clear and as possible without dumbing it down to silly levels. So I think it works well in the classroom. Another context in which I think it works well is for church study groups, especially if there's a group that likes to read. Then I think most would find the chapters accessible or as a good resource for a group leader who can sort of repackage and represent material to a group. For religious scholars and academics, I think the book provides an updating on the developing interpretations and insights into the texts of early Judaism. like the Dead Sea Scrolls and Pseudepigrapha, etc., and the complementary rethinking of New Testament texts that's taken place in relation to those developing understanding. So I think it provides an accessible update on those academic discussions as well.
Great. Thank you, Warren. It sounds like a fantastic book. I mean, you get some really good practical uh, interest there of using in the classroom, using in the church. I mean, there's a lot of misunderstanding in the church about early Judaism and the whole Judeophobia thing that's involved in the church. I think, particularly in divinity schools and seminaries, making sure that people that are going out into ministry like that are well prepared with a great understanding of Judaism and what was going on in the first century. And I commend you both for writing this book. I look forward to seeing it out there and seeing it on the table at SBL. And thank you both for being here today. And we really appreciate your work in the Academy. And thank you both.
Thanks very much, Archie. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.